Minister, the budget said the following, and we've raised a lot of concern about this, as you know. The budget says, Budget 2025 announces the government's intention to propose legislative and regulatory amendments to address integrity issues related to private educational institutions by generally limiting access to the Canada Student Grant for full-time students to students attending public institutions and not-for-profit private institutions within Canada. As I've pointed out, this proposal in the budget would eliminate funding for students who are pursuing essential vocational training, which is only, as it happens, available at private institutions. I do want to note that the Budget Implementation Act, which we're discussing today, does not implement the provisions that were foreshadowed in the budget with respect to this. It makes some changes, but they are very different from what is in the budget. Is the government still committed to the policy as articulated in the budget, or has the government decided to change course on this?
The government is committed to making sure that when young people purchase education, that education actually is accredited and is actually valuable in terms of their productivity and their work experiences. And so this...
I am going to jump in to just insist on a specific answer to a very simple question. Is the government committed to the budget provisions specifically as they were laid out on page 217 of the budget that I just read? Is that still the government's policy?
The government's policy is that we will ensure that the way that we invest through Canada Student Supports means that quality education is the outcome.
Minister, you're a minister of the Crown. It doesn't seem to me that it would be that difficult to say if you stand behind the budget or if you don't stand behind the budget. Do you stand behind the budget at the specific provisions on page 217 in the budget that I just read out? Do you stand behind those provisions?
As I said, the focus of the government is to deliver supports to students so that the expenses they incur for education are actually resulting in quality education that results in labor attachment.
Right. That's a great objective. Do you agree with and stand behind the policy laid out in the budget, page 217?
What I will repeat is that the focus of the government is to make sure that students who are utilizing Canada's student learning supports will result in education that is valuable to them. What we have seen is an increase
Minister,
in institutions.
it's incredible to me that you can't give a simple answer to the question about whether the government still stands behind the policy. Well, so the simple question is, does the government maintain and continue to have as its policy, the policy articulated on page 217 of the budget? It's just yes or no. Do you stand behind that policy announcement in the budget?
The work that the government is doing is to ensure that federal student financial assistance that provided to students is utilized in institutions that will provide
That's
quality
just not an answer to the question. I think the public can see that. I wonder if I can ask the Deputy Minister, Mr. Thompson, if you don't mind me putting you on the hot seat. You often speak on government policy, even though you're not responsible for making it, you're responsible for implementing it. So is it your understanding that the section I just read from page 217 is still government policy? Is it still government policy?
We have full intention to implement the budget measures as they were laid out by the government.
Okay.
I would note that.
Thank you. That was a clear response. I disagree with it, and I'm disappointed by it, but it was a clear response. The government still intends to implement those provisions. Do you know when the government expects to implement the provisions that I've just read out, given that they were not included in the Budget Implementation Act? Again, to the Deputy Minister.
Well, listen, I think we all understand that pieces of legislation have to pass this House for the budget to pass so that Canadians can get the relief that all of you have been saying is so essential.
Provisions that I'm talking about are not in the Budget Implementation Act. Mr. Thompson has confirmed that they're still government policy. So when does the government have a timeline for proposing those measures? Again, we oppose the provisions explained in 217, but I think students would like to have some certainty around when their grants will be cut. So what's the plan there?
Well, it's difficult to project a timeline when we see the kind of obstruction in the House for everyday pieces of legislation, including the BIA. So I wouldn't want to put a date on it since some of the levers are in your hands.
We can't be accused of obstructing provisions that have not been presented in the House.